was incredibly familiar, nearly identical to the vintage pen it bought from my text-meaningless boyfriend. It spent hours hunting it down in an antique shop, and the owner had sworn it was a one-of-a-kind piece. Before my rational mind could stop me, the word slipped out. Does that pen write well? Zachary's expression hardened even further. Mind your own business, Gwen. He snapped, the file closed. You're working overtime tonight. Don't even think about leaving until this is fixed. When Zachary gave an order, there was no negotiating. Clara was nowhere to be found for the rest of the afternoon. With no other choice, I sat down and began rebuilding her half of the project from scratch, scraping databases, cross-minus referencing figures, and pulling new charts. By the time the rest of the office packed up and left, I was still buried under a mountain of papers. I ordered a lukewarm black coffee, too exhausted to even think about dinner. The open-minus-plan office was pitch black, save for the solitary glow of my monitor. I rubbed a few drops of peppermint essential oil onto my temples, hoping the sharp scent would stave off the pounding headache. Once the revision was complete, I carried the binder back to Zachary's office. He hadn't left either, still buried under his own mountain of executive paperwork. As I approached his desk, he suddenly stopped writing and looked up, his nose wrinkling. What is that smell? Peppermint oil, I mumbled, rubbing my neck. I was getting a headache. I don't like it, he said, his brow furrowing. It has a... He trailed off, searching for the word. A medicinal apothecary smell, I supplied automatically. The phrase slipped out before I could stop it. My text-boyfriend had used those exact words once when I told him about my favorite oil. Zachary froze, his hand suspended in mid-air. He stared at me, a sudden, intense confusion flashing in his dark eyes. He rubbed his temples, his gaze locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. Where did you hear that phrase? He demanded, his voice dropping an octave. Before I could answer, the door burst open. Babe, you must be exhausted, I brought you. Clara froze when she saw me standing there. She was weighed down with glossy shopping bags from Saks and Chanel. So that was where her urgent client meeting had taken her. Oh Gwen, you're still here, she said, her voice stopping the high-bitch baby tone. No thanks to you, I thought. Zachary skimmed the revised pages of my report, his expression unreadable. This is acceptable. It's late. Go home. I turned to leave, but as the door swung shut behind me, I caught the low murmur of Clara's voice. What were you two talking about just now? I was too tired to notice the sharp, calculating look she threw at my back. The next day at lunch, Zoe slid into the booth across from me, looking like a spy on a covert mission. She glanced left and right before leaning over the table. Gwen, there's a rumor spreading. People are saying you stayed late last night specifically to try and make a move on Mr. Harley. I choked on my salad, coughing into a napkin. What? It's all over the group chats. I know it's garbage, obviously, but still, only Clara and I had been there last night. Why would she spin a lie like that? Shaking it off, I tried to focus on my work. Later that afternoon, I walked up to the executive suite to turn in the final contract specs. The heavy wooden door to Zachary's office wasn't fully closed, and Clara's voice drifted out into the hallway. Babe, you've heard the rumors, she was saying, her voice a soft, dramatic purr. Honestly, I think letting Gwen go might be the best way to protect her reputation. And yours. She's been with the firm for 5 years, Clara, Zachary replied, sounding exhausted. I can't just fire her without cause. But her work has been so sloppy lately. Most of the project we just turned in was actually done by me. If she leaves, it clears up the gossip and we don't have to worry about her bringing down the team's metrics. I didn't wait to hear the rest. I walked back to my desk and quietly began packing my personal things into a cardboard box. 10 minutes later, an email from HR landed in my inbox. Termination of contract. Ren, can you take a look at these client files? Our department director asked, dropping a folder on my desk, entirely unaware of what had just happened. I